Friday to all. Thank you for joining the MVP Office Hours call for March 4th, 2016. My name is Jackie Travieso, and I will be your host and facilitator today. Jared and Dale were not able to join us, so I will be your host and facilitator. So welcome. Today's call is all about open discussion. There are no questions or topics too big or too small. We are recording this call, and the recording will be posted both in the Success community and on Twitter. If everyone can take a moment to mute themselves, that'll help reduce background noise and any echoing. And please feel free to use the raise your hand in the chat, and we will make sure that we get to everybody's questions. Before we get started into the meat of discussions, I'd like for everyone to know that they can go ahead and mark their calendar for 2016. We are officially on the calendar for the first and third Friday of the month, 11 Pacific, 1 Central, and 2 p.m. Eastern. If you are coming to us from other time zones, I've got a link there that you can use to figure out how that translates to your local time zone. Please feel free to post some follow-up questions or screenshots or any kind of responses that you have in community in the MVP Office Hours chatter group. I do have one suggestion that if you have any new questions that we haven't started to discuss, I'd suggest that you post those into answers and then in community post a link to that question. That way you get more eyes on the question, much more immediate, and it also creates a helpful database for others to access at a later time. That's my tip for you. If you're not following us on MVP Office Hours or on Twitter, we do have an official handle now at MVP Office Hours. We also have a short link, officehours.info, that'll take you straight to the community chatter group. And again, this is for community by community, so we're all in this together answering everybody's questions. Want to give you a reminder, if you haven't heard about Southeast Dreaming, it's next week, March 9th and 10th in Atlanta. There is a registration or an entire website and registration link that you can access on southeastdreamin.com. Hope to see you there. I will be there along with many other community contributors and MVPs, so we'd love to say hello in person. We have a little bit of a new format for our office hour calls. We have been listening and continue to listen about conversations that have to do with common themes, and we're trying to extend invitations to MVPs who have that specific experience so that we can have a dedicated resource for you on specific calls. Plenty of advertising behind that so you know what's coming up. And of course, we are always joined by many other MVPs who have a plethora of knowledge in all different areas of the platform. Admins, developers, Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, marketing, the whole kit and caboodle. So you should have plenty of resources on these calls to get you down the right path if you're trying to solve a problem or have a challenge or have questions. So as you're thinking about these calls, now that we are dedicated to a first and third Friday of the month, feel free to submit your topics and your questions, and we'll see if we can get somebody specifically dedicated to that area of expertise for you. With that said, our special guest for this series is Jeff May. Jeff is always my go-to person for anybody who's asking about person accounts, how to set them up, should they set them up, things like that. Jeff comes to us with all kinds of knowledge about the platform and is not just a person's account expert. So Jeff, if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
Hey everybody, surprise, this is Jeff. I don't have much else to say because Jackie did such a great job. The most important thing I guess to offer that I always make sure I share is that I am an independent consultant, which means I always give you my opinion, and sometimes I'm pretty opinionated, but I'm speaking on behalf of myself, not behalf of Salesforce, not behalf of any other company. So sometimes I do have to share some sad news that that feature doesn't work well or at all. But what you're getting is my opinion. So maybe it helps you, maybe it gives you some insight into the org that you're running and the questions that you have.
Great, thank you, Jeff. And for the other MVPs who are on the line, if you could in the chat raise your hand, and we'll let you do a self-introduction as well so everyone can know who's on the line. Susan, let's go ahead and start with you.
Hello, everyone. This is Susan Thayer. I am a Sogeti consultant out of Omaha, Nebraska. So happy to be on the call. Excited that we have such a great round of speakers today.
Thank you, Susan. Rhonda Ross.
Hi there. I'm Rhonda Ross. On Twitter, I am at SierraMDR. Anyway, that's my Twitter handle. I won't explain why right now. And I am a user group leader in San Diego, and I work for Aprilio. I'm also a consultant.
Great. Thank you, Rhonda. Any other MVPs on the line?
Hi, this is Brian Kwong.
Brian, go ahead.
This is Brian Kwong. I'm the VP of Delivery and Operations for Better Partners, typically known as the Salesforce Wizard or that crazy guy with the funny hat.
Thank you for joining us, Brian. And who was the other MVP voice we started to hear?
Carlos Villalpando. I'm the Senior Director of Technology Services Consulting Shop in Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Great, thanks, Carlos. And Margaret.
Hi there, this is Margaret Fako. I am a business architect at Interlochen Center for the Arts in Northern Michigan, and I'm a brand new MVP, so happy to be joining you today.
Congratulations and welcome. Thank you for joining us. Okay, it looks like that might be your MVP audience, so let's get down to brass tacks, as they say. As we go through and have these discussions, one of the things that I will do as your host and facilitator is that as we start talking about different links and resources, I'm going to actually drop them into this PowerPoint so that you've got a place to reference them post-call. So with that, let's go ahead and let's start asking questions. And if everyone can put themselves on mute when they're not asking a question, that would be fantastic. We're getting a little bit of feedback. Thank you. Squire's got a question.
Of course I have a question.
Wonderful. Thank you, Squire.
So kind of a brainstorm discussion just to kind of see if anybody has any quick hits. We have the need to have an activity multi-relate to a variety of what IDs effectively. So if we have users who need to be create a task or an event or even as far as just call it a note and be able to say it's related to 5 accounts and 4 opportunities and 3 whatever else is custom objects, and they don't want to clone it multiple times, obviously, and so we're having some challenges as far as the best way to address doing that. I feel like in my head that the right way to do it would be creating some sort of join object and then automation to help it multi-relate, but I wanted to throw it out there for the MVPs, see if they have any ideas.
So this is Jeff, and any of you who have seen my postings or have discussions with me, you know what my first question is going to be. What is the use case that a single task or note would apply to 5 different accounts and 3 different opportunities in 2 different cases?
Sure. So in this case, we're talking about a group of investment bankers who are having meetings to discuss a potential deal or offering, and in those interactions, they might be having a conference call or attending some sort of local meetup with their clients or their banks or whoever. And when they deliver this information or they have these exchanges, they need to be able to track that conversation with everybody from a compliance perspective, so that going forward, if that deal moves, they want to know everybody that was involved during every layer of a conversation. So I can go into more detail if that isn't completely clear.
No, well, so let me throw something out, and we'll get some discussion to see if you've tried it and it doesn't work, or and people have other ideas. But if you thought about turning on shared activities where on a single task you can add up to 50 different contacts, and it doesn't matter what account those contacts are associated with.
We have, unfortunately, the relationship needs to be to a variety of additional custom objects that have to do with our business process, including a custom opportunity record. You don't want to know.
So you're trying to relate this not just to the people who were participating then.
Yeah, I mean it's custom records across the board. We do already use shared activities for the multiple contact piece, which works in that specific case, but it's downstream. There's layers of these projects. They go through multiple phases, and there's multiple objects that tie to the overall deal, and each one of those pieces at times will have to be multi-related. And so like for example, going even farther, so a deal, which we call an opportunity but not a standard opportunity, it's a custom object, converts to an engagement once it's been effectively signed off on. And then on that engagement, there's a sub-record called the party record, which represents all the people interacting with this deal moving forward. And so if something is associated with a party record, it would also have to be related to the above engagement and or I should say the parent engagement and the parent opportunity. I can write automation to clone the task based on those relationships, but at the end of the day, they all become multiple tasks and not a single task from an editing perspective.
Why do you want something related to everything in the data model hierarchy?
Again, unfortunately, it's the business requirement that they want to have that interaction at every tier, so no matter where you report or start, you know all of the potential tags that have happened to it throughout the entire hierarchy. In a perfect world, it would be be an account and an opportunity and a contact relationship, so that that automated backbone will take it over.
The only way to do that would be to create custom objects that basically represent junction objects.
Yep.
So you have one record that is, or one object that represents, here's the meeting, whatever you call it.
Yep.
And then that one meeting could have 20 or 30 or 40 different junction objects that connect it to accounts and opportunities and contacts and custom objects, any other connection that you want.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's where I was thinking I almost have to treat the junction object like a pretend activity to be able to display the details on a related list, but at the end of the day, it's still just the task being edited.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yep. But the custom activity object would be related to the junction object, which will connect it to all those other contacts.
Yep.
Accounts.
Okay. I like hearing what I was already thinking, but I'm open to other suggestions.
Square, so you're using custom activities. You're not using the standard task in an event model?
We are using the standard. It's been overridden by a partner to do more than just that, but it is the standard task. Okay.
Well, it's just so you know, from a junction object standpoint, you can't do a lookup to a task. So
yeah. So what I was thinking I would be able to do, and tell me if I'm on the wrong path, is what I'd end up doing is having the what relationship be to a junction object, which then does all the additional connections in the background. So I would basically override the original what, at the starting point with the created junction object, and then multi-relate upstream to all the appropriate relationships. Probably have to write some sort of Visualforce overlay so you can look up and multi-relate those objects from, again, that single interface.
Well, you might not need the Visualforce depending on what your rules are.
Okay.
So if you're on the project record, which is a child of the engagement record, which is the child of the opportunity, which is a child of the account, you could find all those relationships just using a flow.
Right. Yep. And the real challenge will be at the times, I was thinking that as well, the real challenge will be when, say you're on I'll call it a chain of the records you described on chain A, but you also need to be on chain B and chain C and chain D. Being able to do all of those multiple joins from a single interface without, again, cloning the same activity. So, because it does split it, a single interaction might hit 5 opportunities and their related engagements and their related firms and their related, etc. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely not a pretty option. So.
Yeah, and
Definitely.
frankly,
This is
my
oh,
go ahead.
sorry, I was going to say this, Carlos, and we had with a client a similar situation, and when we started going through the solution and with a data model, it was getting kind of scary, and we decided to do the cloning, but then we put a trigger that basically maintains all the clone tasks in sync. We added a field to all the tasks that will store the original task ID. So if someone were to modify any of the clone ones, if it wasn't marked as the original one, it will go. It had a reference, a field with just the store ID of the original task, and from there we knew what we had to replicate. And yeah, it created a lot of records, but from the data model was very simple. It was difficult to maintain on the code side. So, but I don't know that it's one for the other.
Yeah, I mean, and I like that too. As because that one is probably more sustainable because it uses what you'd expect from the architecture without having to build in some sort of unique joiner. But like you said, it takes the code on the backside. So I like both these ideas. I mean, at the end of the day, just to add one more thing, in a perfect world, it would be the functionality that Lightning Notes gives us. That's really what we'd be shooting for in the long term, but we're not on a roadmap to get to Lightning anytime soon, so we can't leverage that.
Yeah, my last comment on this, unless somebody has further thing, is keep in mind if you clone that task, you're defeating the purpose of having everything related to one task.
Yeah.
Which then doesn't get you what you're looking for from an audit perspective.
Right. I mean, I think what I was hearing with that solution would be that then regardless of whichever task, like if you clone it, whichever task you edit, it would find all of the other ones that are effectively the clones, so you'd have some sort of external ID or something that links them all together, and then it would just update them all at once on a trigger after the fact.
Yeah, but they're still separate records, and depending on your audit team, that probably won't fly.
Yeah, I would agree that it would be a second option. So, all right, I appreciate all the input from everyone, and I'll let someone else take the floor.
Thank you. Great discussion there, gentlemen. Anyone else have a question? You can raise your hand in the chat widget there. Oh, we got a ton of them. Amanda.
Hello. My question is, well, I have two. One, I recently got a business requirement where one of our partners would like to be able to, instead of using the standard probability percentages, he'd like to be able to use his own to be able to edit it and not necessarily have it automatically update based on the stage. But we have others that want to continue using the standard fields. Is there a good way to accommodate both of those?
Somebody else want to jump in, or do you want me to just keep mouthing
off? This is Susan. So if I understand correctly, right now your probability is defaulted by stage, and it's not editable. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. You could still have it default by stage and then turn on edit permissions if that's what you want. And then that
way. But if you change stage, then would it automatically go back to whatever the default is?
For that stage, you guys change stages a lot then?
I mean, fairly. We have 5 stages, so we don't move things very quickly, but things do move through the pipe.
Yeah, so it would change it to whatever that stage default probability was set at.
Okay.
You could certainly, if you wanted to, write some workflow logic that if user B changes it to another new stage, the probability doesn't change.
Okay.
If they're moving though to another stage, and this is Rhonda talking, if they are moving the opportunity to another stage, wouldn't that be a time for them to though take a look at it and see whether they want to manually adjust the probability again? I would think that, once you're moving through stages, it would increase the probability. Might not be to the default, but it seems like they would probably want to change the probability at that point in time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Could I ask, is the idea that this person wants to be able to change it, like basically affect it going forward, or just be able to recalculate on the fly their own expected probability? So kind of have both the stage-driven and their custom one?
No, he wouldn't want to see both. He'd only want to see his own.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you gotta love salespeople. This is when I pull the admin card and I say, you know what, it's not possible.
I told him I wasn't sure. I would ask around.
There you go. Good answer. Yeah, so I don't know if you guys have a sales team leader that can kind of weigh in on whether that's the best use of your time or not, or if he or she should just, learn to use the system the way it's set up or not.
Right. He's one of the partners of the firm. So, yeah. But it's also something that he recognizes is not going to happen anytime soon if it does happen. So, he's not pushing for it. He just wants to know if it's possible.
Are you using forecasting from Salesforce also, or are you just managing sales based on the opportunities?
I'm sorry, I couldn't understand that.
Are you using the forecasting feature also, or are you just doing opportunities?
We are not using we're not using forecasting right now.
So
we have
is the person who's the partner, is he wanting to override what a salesperson is saying? Is that what he's, is he wanting to kind of make an adjustment based on someone else's opportunity, or is it his own opportunity that he's
It would be
wanting
his team's opportunities.
Okay.
So we're an accounting firm. So we're starting to Salesforce on the professional services side, and we have a good number of clients that we get back every year. And so we put those through as new opportunities every year. But he's saying if it's a client we've had for 10 years, we're 100% confident, even though we're at a stage 1 with that client, going back and issuing a new engagement letter and all of that kind of thing. He's 100% confident that we're going to get to the point where that client's going to sign the engagement letter again. Or the opposite, it's something that is in a completely new geographic territory for us, and we don't really have much experience there yet, but we're just going to propose on it and see what happens. In that case, even though it's a stage 3, it's a proposal, it's probably not 50%, it's probably more like 10%.
Yeah. You might want to take a look at the forecasting module, see whether or not that's something that your company would want to take advantage of, something that's already included, because that module gives the ability to kind of override, kind of on a forecasting standpoint, to override, override it and still maintain, still look at, kind of, here's the default one, but here's what we want to use for forecasting purposes. So it might be something to consider.
Okay. Thank you.
But, yeah, and you can always, like I said, you can write a workflow rule that just for him that keeps the prior value of that probability to make him happy. I don't know if that's necessarily a best practice, because there's probably a chance where he does want to follow the normal stages.
Right. Yeah.
And that may not necessarily work because if he's doing it for his team and someone else owns that opportunity and changes the stage, then it won't realize that the partner was the one that made the probability.
Yeah, I'd say it's just a training issue, and just say, you know what, if you change it from main engagement stage to this stage, check that the probability is what you want, and if not, change it then.
All right.
We're also getting a recommendation in our chat window that says, what about opportunity types and having 2 sales processes, one for new customers and one for the existing customers? That might be something that you might want to think about as well.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Nicole, for that. Okay. Thank you, Amanda, for that question. That's fantastic. Up next, how about Dennis? You got a question?
Hey, guys. Yeah, hi, guys. Hey, listen, I got a Salesforce One end-user training question. Specifically, I was just wondering if you could point me towards some screenshots online or something that I could give to our end users. Now, they have to be dumbed down. Let me explain what I mean by that. The ones I've seen already show the app installed, like look, the user interface and how you would navigate on your iPhone or whatever Salesforce One. But I'm looking for, here's a picture of a cell phone. Here's how you go to the App Store. You put in Salesforce, you hit search. Salesforce One appears. Click the little icon. Then you're going to have to put in your username, your password. I think there's another verification step that the Salesforce One mobile application asks you for first-time installation. So I've got to walk our end users who aren't very bright, if you haven't picked up on that, through the installation of the app. Could you point me toward any of that, those kinds of screenshots?
I don't think you're going to find that unless somebody happens to have a similarly challenged set of users. That might be something you're going to have to build yourself.
Yeah, I always make them myself when I do training. If you Google it, you can find images. But, like you said, your users want to see what they need to see. And if I have somebody else's, let's say it's got a username on there with @gmail.com, I want it to be as dummy as possible. So I use the email address for the company, and I just take screenshot after screenshot and make my own training.
Okay.
I'm wondering whether Apple has anything on how to, download things from Apple. I mean, for most people, it's pretty intuitive, but I would look to see if there's something there because I agree. I don't think it's going to be something for Salesforce. That might be a starting point, but I think you are going to want to, take your own screenshots, incorporate them in. But that might be a starting place if Apple has something like that. I'm trying to Google it right now see if I come across anything.
And Jackie, I just sent you a link of a Chrome add-on that simulates Salesforce. So you can actually do your own screenshots from your PC to use in the training.
Well, give me 2 seconds and I will drop it into our PowerPoint so that everyone can see it. There we go. Thank you, Susan. All right, thank you, Dennis, for that question.
Thanks, guys.
Is Jessica.
Hi. I have a quick question concerning, field types. I have a user who we're using the standard opportunity, and she's looking up the contact, and that's not a big deal. She's found her contact, but she wants to pull in the email addresses associated with that contact record, and that's fine. I said, well, we could either, we can do a formula field because right now another delegated admin created her field, and it's just a blank, text field. So that's what she's been entering in, her email address with. But she wants it to be the standard email address that's already existing with the contact. So I said, well, we're going to change it then to a formula field. But she doesn't want to do that because she wants to be able to edit it if she decides not to use that email address with that contact. Like maybe the contact decides for that one opportunity they want to use a different email. So any suggestions on a field type or workaround that we'll give her a default email address, but then allow her the ability to change it if she needs to.
Well,
Without
please let me answer. This is one of my favorite topics. It's all about the data model. If what she's talking about is she wants to see the email address for that contact but doesn't want to email that contact, I would really, really strongly suggest you do one of two things. Unrelate the contact, because then it's not the contact on the op, or go update the contact record with the email address for the contact. Anything else, and she's really defeating the purpose of having the contact associated to your record.
Right, and I totally agree. But the problem is with that is that we have two different companies actually sharing an org, and you have to go through a lot of like one company like controls the contact records, and the other company, we're talking deals with accounting people, deals with all the other different sides. So they have like some customers will have a email address that we use as a primary email address, but then they also have, because they manage, I guess, the same contact manages maybe a couple different areas, they have separate email addresses for each area that they manage. And so we're trying not to, I guess, store every single email address that this person has.
Well, I think you definitely want to store them.
Where would we store them at, though? I mean, are we going to have a contact record with 10 different individual email fields?
If it's all the same person and they're all email addresses for that contact, sure.
But how many should I create in order to I don't want to overdo it. I don't want to report with 10 blank email fields, but one might have it.
This is Carlos, and I'm working with a school education client, and they have a similar situation. And after going around and around, what we end up doing is we created a related object that is called email, and it's attached to the contact. And basically, if you want to have a new email address, you just add it as a related record. It just has the name of the record, and the only field that is on the object is email. And actually, I think that they added even a pick list for type of email, right? Home, mobile, or other stuff. And that allowed them to have infinite amount of emails per contact that we didn't understand, but they want.
How do you use those emails, though? How do you, since those emails are no longer on the contact record, how do you use them, say, when you add a contact to an opportunity?
On the school, we don't know how they just wanted to store them. I don't know how mechanically they're using them. So
yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, I like the idea that that we can add as many emails or as few as we need. But that is the problem, though. When we go to relate it to an opportunity, how am I going to pick that specific email that she wants? I mean, how do I link it?
How does she know which one she wants?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Well,
how will she know which email she wants?
I guess they're going to tell her, the person that's going to tell her. And she wants one that defaults that, and she wants to default one email, but then she wants the ability to pick something different. So how do I default one single email? Yeah, I guess that's how do I default it?
That part's easy, but I think it will lead to data trouble later. Just on the opportunity, you can just put a workflow rule in place that when the lookup contact field gets populated, take the lookup contact email, do a field update, and put the lookup contact email in an email field on the opportunity.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and if you had an email field on the contact called, let's say, Division 1 email, and then a different email field called Division 2 email, and you are always on Division 2, let's just say, then that's the email you always take in your workflow.
That's true. I do think of that. We're having a similar. I don't know why emails are starting to be such a issue with our company, but it is because we have a back-end integration with Cvent. I don't know if any of you have dealt with that, but it's people are basically registering for meetings. Some of our meetings, we have our match on our last name and on the email address, and we have a problem that they're not. That we are storing their work email, and people are registering with their, personal emails or their additional emails, and so it's creating all these excess records. And so we're still battling out how many different emails should we allow one contact to have, and what's the best way to store those. So that also comes into this opportunity thing: is if we decide to store multiple emails, how do we, pick which one we want to use? I guess. But okay, but we can do that. Workflow. I like the workflow idea to go ahead and default it without that way I don't have to use it as a formula field. And then should that email field be a lookup, or will it let me do a workflow to a lookup field, or should it just be an email field?
It'll just be an email field, and your field update will use the formula and set the email field on the opportunity to the value of that related contact.
Okay, so
field.
If she changes it and she just types in something else, basically it's only going to be stored on that opportunity. It won't go back to the contact. Correct?
Assuming, write your workflow rule to say only do this when when that lookup contact field gets populated. So if she changes the contact, then it would reset the custom contact.
Okay, all right. I think that'll work. All right, thank you.
Nicole, can you hear me?
I can. I can now.
Great. You had a question?
Okay. So you
had a question?
I did. This is kind of related to, I've built out a visual flow. However, I'm starting to hit some SQL query limit. And I didn't know if anybody had any suggestions for bulkifying, record create. I am using a fast update right now, but my problem is that there are a few cases in which it would create 1,000 records, and I know it sounds terrible, but it's a very interesting business need, and it was missing a intermediate object in between a parent and a child, so I have to push that intermediate in. And I was just wondering if anybody had suggestions or tips on how to work around or how to work with a SQL query limit when you have tens of thousands.
This is Jeff again. Somebody else can jump in if somebody's dying to talk. I hate to get there. So to address, if you can,
is there a drone flying around?
So to address
See
the
if I
SQL
can
limit.
mute that.
To address
See if I can mute that.
I'm sorry, Jeff. I can't.
So to address the SQL limit in your flow, instead of doing a fast update for each record, use an S collection. So as you iterate through those records, just keep adding your S object variable to a collection and do one fast update for your collection.
I have an S collection that is looking to see if it already exists, and if it doesn't, it adds it to my create collection, and then at the end, I'm having it create all the objects at once.
Perfect.
I don't know if this is where I'm hitting my SQL query limit, or maybe my S collection isn't right, but when it gets to the end, if it's like 200 or 300 records, it fires fine. But when I get to the one that's like 976 records, it fails.
So the SOCL error isn't on the commit, it's on the querying that you're doing in your flow? It's on the querying that you're doing in your flow? Or it's in custom code that's reacting to the if you've got a trigger input.
I'm not sure if it's sorry, I think I have a delay. I'm not sure if it is actually during the query or if it's at the final create, but it seems like when my query gets, or when I'm starting to deal with a larger amount of records, that's when it fails.
So the SOCL is the query.
So if I have...
So the SOCL is the query.
Yes. So that means it's happening during my loop, not at my in create, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So is there a way to break up my query so that it's only going through like maybe 200 records at a time instead of going through all of them at once?
What is the query that you're doing? What is the query that you're doing?
So my query right now is it is trying to find all accounts that fit within that have a lookup to a custom object called group. So it creates an S collection of all accounts within a group, and then it goes through all of those accounts and sees if they have a summary record, and if they don't, it creates a summary record.
So there's your SOCL
and
problem.
I'm okay on accounts.
There's your SOCL problem. So when you've got your single SOCL that builds your collection of accounts to look at. That's okay. But it sounds like you're then looping through, and for each of those accounts, you're trying to query for the summary record.
Yes.
You'll want to build a list of all the account IDs in your collection, and then do one summary query into an S-object collection of summary records for all of those summary records.
So, sorry. So how should I be? I think. So how should I be arranging my loops? Because I think right now it goes through each account, and then if the summary doesn't exist, it adds it, and then it does a fast update.
So I think I would grab all of your accounts into one S-object collection. And then from there, grab all of the summaries that exist in another S-object collection. And then you can loop through that list and figure out either what's there to update or what's new that needs to be created.
Okay. And the second S-object collection is all summaries for one account, correct?
No, it's for all accounts.
For all accounts. Okay. Okay. And should I create these is it okay to keep these two S-object collections into one flow, or do I need to do any sort of subflow?
Yeah. No, you can do them in one flow. Because now you're down to just, at that point, you're just down to two SOCL, one for the accounts and one for the summary.
Okay. And then, so I think where I started going wrong is I created a third SOCL or S-object collection store the summaries that I needed to create.
That should be okay, I think.
Okay. And even if it's looping through 2,000 accounts, it should be okay?
Yes, because that's not doing any SOCO. It's just looping through your S object collection.
Okay, so it's okay. Okay.
Sorry for all of that feedback, ladies and gentlemen. I figured out what it was, but I can't fix it. For some reason, it posed logged in twice. So I'm going to mute you, and then if you have another question, you can raise your hand. Okay, anybody else have any questions? Some really great discussion. Time check, we've got about 14 minutes left on our call. Squire's got a question. Go ahead, Squire.
Hopefully just a confirmation again. So we have 2 different orgs and basically 5 business units scattered across both of them. Each business unit is isolated from the others with both security and user sharing because of our compliance rules. But we need to come up with a way to allow a business leader in each group to be able to collaborate together without displaying their business unit specific detail by a chatter group of some sort. We started with something along the line of creating a private group in one org and then inviting the other business leaders into that group as customers so they wouldn't see anything but that one group. But then there's been some discussion about whether or not that's appropriate. And so we're just trying to figure out the best way to say, how do we get these 5 people collaborating but without displaying anything business related or even pertaining to the groups that are available to them? Are we on the right path with using like an external client, external customer invitation type group?
Oh, bailing in. This is Jeff
that
again.
definitely.
Go ahead.
Sure, that sounds like a great solution. Another one you might want to look into a test is if you were to add a sharing rule to your users to share those 5 user records with each other. So maybe you have a flag on their user record. You could try that out and see if that would allow them to collaborate, but still restrict what they see.
Yeah.
I don't know if that would work or not. It depends on how much restriction you want into what they see for each other's.
Yeah. So we tried that. The challenge was that what was happening is they could start interacting with each other, but then people within their business unit could also see the collaboration on that person's feed. So it was almost like the direct reports could see their manager's collaboration with other people, and while they couldn't see the people, they could see the collaboration posts in the feed.
Yeah, no, you'd have to do a private chatter group still.
Yeah. So all right. So we're on the
right
right path.
And be in the same group. Well, they could all still be in the same group, and the reason I like that approach is that they don't have to have 2 different logins.
Right.
But they couldn't talk on each other's feed, or else that would be public.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, as soon as they see each other, that's kind of why we like the external customer, because then you only can see the people as members of the group. There's nothing going past that. Then we were struggling with, well, maybe we need a 3rd org to really make sure everything's locked down from a compliance perspective. So, but I think we're going to start with that. So thank you for confirming that.
Okay, anybody else have a question? Some really great discussion. We've got 10 minutes left. We don't have any other questions. If I can ask the MVPs who are still on our call, you guys could give us your number one helpful tip. That would be great. Jeff, what is yours?
My number one helpful tip always is pay attention to your data model. If you put the data in the right place, everything else gets easy. And if you put it in the wrong place, you're setting yourself up for long nights and no weekends.
Good point. Rhonda, what is your number one tip? Or Susan, what is yours?
Ooh, I didn't know I had to do this. So what's top of mind right now? It's very easy in Salesforce to make updates and changes.
Oh, I'm sorry, Terry. I
Go ahead, Susan.
Okay. So I was saying it's very easy to make updates and changes, as we're all aware. My number one tip right now would be to make sure that you release those changes on a cycle and not give into the wind to push something to production immediately because users are asking for it. Stick to the cycle. It'll help you later on. That's it.
Good. Good tip. All right, one last call for questions or discussions or thoughts. Or anybody else have something they'd like to share?
This is Rhonda. I'll add a tip as a follow-up to Jeff's tip. That in addition to the data model, also think about your reporting needs, which is very much related to the data model. Because a lot of times you're putting information into Salesforce to get out reports, but a lot of times people don't think about the reports up front and then find out that the data model isn't correct or something else just was missed in the initial requirements. So always think about the reporting up front.
That's a good one as well. All right, I'm going to flip back into my slides real quick and let you know that March 18th is our next call, and we'll be joined by Dan Ampleman, who has an extensive history and expertise with Apex language and Apex design. He's written a couple of books and courses, and he is going to be a great resource for us to talk about advanced Apex programming, a topic that we don't spend a whole lot of time or get a whole lot of questions during these MVP calls, so hopefully we can fill a gap or a void there, and look forward to his contributions along with a wider audience of MVPs. So think about your questions and feel free to, if you'd like, submit them. We'll make sure that we've got someone who can talk about the subject and get you what you need. Again, this is community for the community, and so we want to make sure we're getting you information that is pertinent to you. With that, we have 7 minutes left, so if you've got a question, now's your last chance. Otherwise, I'd like to say thank you so much to Jeff for being our first special guest and bringing us all of that important information, along with all of our other MVPs who made great contributions and hopefully provided you with some solutions that you can take away. And of course, when you can't sleep at 2 or 3 in the morning, you can process all of that information and come up with a solution that works for you. Anyone have anything else they'd like to contribute?
Jackie, what's your tip?
What is my tip? So I attended one of the Rewind presentations that was done by Salesforce this week, and one of the little things that I had missed or heard about and didn't put into practice was the mass deleting of reports. So once you can isolate what your group of reports looks like, you can program that into one of the wizards and do a mass delete. Just make sure you know what you're deleting and why you're deleting it before you do it. That's one tip that I have that I'm actually starting to put into practice and put the framework around this week for a client of mine so that we can clean up their data. Thank you for asking, Susan. All right, with that, I'll give you 5 minutes back on your Friday. And again, thank you everybody for attending. This was a great conversation, and we look forward to having more value conversations on the first and third Friday of the month here at MVP Office Hours. Have a great weekend, everyone.
Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.